You're standing in the store holding that jacket you've wanted for months. You've tried it on 3 times now. It fits perfectly. You can afford it. Your bank account isn't screaming for help. There's no logical reason to put it back on the rack. But something in your chest tightens. A voice whispers, "Do you really need this? Isn't there something more important you should be saving for? What if something happens next month?" And before you know it, you're walking out of the store empty-handed. Again, you tell yourself it's responsible, smart, mature. But deep down, there's a different feeling. Something that tastes like deprivation, like punishment, like you don't quite deserve to have nice things. And the strangest part, you'll spend freely on others. Birthday gifts, dinners, helping friends, that comes easily. But the moment it's about you, about something that's just for your own pleasure, your own comfort, your own joy, something locks up inside. This isn't frugality. This isn't financial wisdom. This is something else entirely. And today we're going deep into the psychology of why you can't spend money on yourself. If this resonates with you, if you've felt that invisible wall between you and self-investment, know that millions of people live with this exact same internal battle every single day. Maybe you wear shoes until they literally fall apart, telling yourself they still have some life left. Maybe you deny yourself experiences, vacations, courses, things that would genuinely improve your life while watching your savings account grow. Maybe you feel a strange guilt every time you buy something that isn't strictly necessary. Or maybe you've noticed that spending on others feels natural, even pleasurable, but spending on yourself feels wrong, indulgent, somehow shameful. Psychologists and behavioral economists call this spending guilt complex, sometimes linked to what's known as self-worth deficit. It's when your ability to invest in yourself is directly tied to how deserving you unconsciously believe you are. And here's what most people don't understand. This isn't discipline. This isn't responsibility. This isn't being good with money. This is an emotional wound dressed up as financial virtue. Your brain learned somewhere along the way that you're not worth investing in. And now it's protecting you from the pain of believing you deserve more than you're getting. So let's go back. Because this didn't start yesterday. This didn't start when you got your first paycheck. This probably started when you were 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. Picture yourself at that age. Maybe you asked for something. A toy, a treat, new clothes because the ones you had were worn out. And what happened? Maybe you heard, "We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. Stop asking for things." And you, with your 7-year-old brain, couldn't understand the complexity of adult financial stress. You couldn't separate their anxiety from your worth. So you made a silent conclusion. "I'm asking for too much. My needs are a burden. I should want less." Or maybe it was different. Maybe money was available, but it came with strings attached, with judgment, with the message that every purchase had to be justified, defended, earned. So you learned, wanting things for myself is wrong. Pleasure is suspicious. I need to prove I deserve everything before I can have it. Or perhaps you grew up watching a parent sacrifice everything for the family, never buying themselves anything, always putting others first, wearing their self-denial like a badge of honor. And you absorbed the unspoken lesson. Good people don't spend on themselves. Selflessness means self-deprivation. My needs come last, always. Your child brain couldn't process this any other way. It created a survival rule. Don't want too much. Don't ask for too much. Don't be too much. And that rule, which made sense when you were small and dependent, is now running your entire financial relationship with yourself. From a neuropsychological perspective, here's what's happening inside you every time you consider spending on yourself. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, does the math. You have the money. The purchase makes sense. There's no logical reason to deny yourself. But then your limbic system kicks in, the emotional brain, the part that holds every memory, every feeling, every message you ever received about your worth and about money. And if that part of your brain learned, decades ago, that your needs are burdens, that wanting things is wrong, that you're not quite deserving, it sends an alarm signal, a feeling of wrongness, that tightening in your chest, that whisper of guilt. Your amygdala, the brain's fear center, interprets spending on yourself as a threat, not a financial threat, but an emotional one. a threat to the identity you built around being the one who doesn't need much, who doesn't ask for things, who sacrifices, and your brain would rather keep you stuck in deprivation than challenge that core belief about who you are. This isn't weakness. This isn't being dramatic. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was programmed to do: protect you from the emotional danger of believing you deserve more than you were taught you do. And as you grew up, this pattern started showing up in ways you might not even recognize. You apologize when you buy things for yourself, even to yourself, even in your own head. There's always a justification, an excuse, a reason why this one time it's okay. You research obsessively before any personal purchase, not out of wisdom, but out of guilt. You need to prove to some invisible judge that this is the right choice, the responsible choice, the acceptable choice. You feel genuine discomfort when someone gives you a gift, because receiving feels wrong, because you're supposed to be the giver, never the taker. You've said some version of, "I don't really need anything," when someone asked what you wanted for your birthday, and you believed it. Because wanting feels dangerous. You watch others treat themselves kindly, and something twists inside you. Maybe judgment, maybe envy, maybe confusion about how they can do that without guilt. Your self-care is always last on the list. The doctor's appointment you keep postponing, the rest you keep denying yourself, the small pleasures you keep calling unnecessary, and perhaps the most painful one, you take better care of others than you do of yourself. You'll spend freely on your kids, your partner, your friends, your parents. But for you, there's always a reason to wait. None of this is character flaw, none of this is virtue. These are survival strategies that made sense once. They protected a child who needed to believe that wanting less would make them more acceptable, more lovable, more safe. But now they're keeping you locked in a prison of self-deprivation. And here's the cruel irony, the paradox that keeps you trapped. You deny yourself to feel responsible, to feel virtuous, to feel like a good person who doesn't waste money on frivolous things. But every act of self-denial reinforces the belief underneath, "I'm not worth it." And the more you reinforce that belief, the harder it becomes to ever feel worthy of investing in yourself. It's like trying to fill a cup while there's a hole in the bottom. You can earn more, you can save more, you can accumulate more. But if you can't spend on yourself, if you can't receive your own investment in your own well-being, all that money just becomes a number that grows while your quality of life stays exactly the same. You're wealthy on paper, but poor in experience. You're financially secure but emotionally deprived. You have the means but not the permission. And permission is the one thing money can't buy, because it has to come from inside, from a place that believes you're worth investing in, from a wound that finally heals. Think about the last time you really wanted something for yourself, not a necessity, not something you could justify with logic, something that was just for your pleasure, your comfort, your joy. Maybe it was a piece of clothing that made you feel good. Maybe it was an experience, a trip, a class, something that called to your soul. What happened inside you? If you're like most people with this pattern, there was a moment of wanting, a spark of desire, and then almost immediately the counterattack, the voice that said, "You don't need that, that's irresponsible. What about saving more? What if something happens? That's selfish. Other people have it worse." And the spark died, buried under a mountain of reasons why you shouldn't. But here's what you didn't notice. Those reasons weren't about money, they were about worth. Because if you truly believed you deserved good things, no amount of rationalizing would stop you from having them. The problem isn't that you can't afford to spend on yourself. The problem is that you can't afford, emotionally, to believe you deserve it. And you've probably tried to fix this, haven't you? You've set budgets that include personal spending. Fun money, they call it. But when the time comes to actually spend it, you transfer it to savings instead. Or you spend it on others. Or you let it sit there, month after month, as evidence of your unworthiness disguised as financial prudence. You've told yourself, "This year I'm going to treat myself better. I'm going to buy that thing. I'm going to take that trip." And maybe you even did, once or twice. But instead of joy, you felt guilt. Instead of pleasure, anxiety. Instead of satisfaction, a nagging sense that you'd done something wrong. You've heard the advice, "You deserve nice things. Treat yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." And intellectually, you agree. Of course you do, it makes perfect sense. But knowledge doesn't change feeling. Advice doesn't heal wounds. Because the problem was never that you didn't know you should spend on yourself. The problem is that a part of you, a very young part, still believes you shouldn't. And while you're locked in this pattern, you're paying a price that doesn't show up on any financial statement. You're depleted because giving without receiving is a recipe for exhaustion, and you've been giving while refusing to give to yourself. Your relationships suffer in subtle ways because people who can't receive can't fully connect, because your inability to accept investment in yourself creates distance even when you don't mean it to. You're modeling something painful for those who love you. Your children watch you deny yourself. Your partner sees you refuse your own care, and they learn that this is what love looks like: sacrifice without joy. You're losing time you can't get back. The experiences you're not having, the growth you're not investing in, the pleasure you're not allowing. Life is passing while you wait for permission that's never coming, because the only person who can give you permission is you. And right now you're saying no to yourself, over and over and over again. But here's where everything can begin to shift. The first step isn't setting a spending goal. It isn't creating a self-care budget. It isn't forcing yourself to buy something you feel guilty about. The first step is understanding. Understanding that this pattern isn't about money. It's about worth. Understanding that the voice telling you you don't deserve it isn't wisdom. It's a wound. Understanding that you learned this. You weren't born unable to receive. Someone, somewhere, something taught you that your needs were too much, that your wants were wrong, that you had to earn the right to exist comfortably. And if you learned it, you can unlearn it. Not overnight. Not easily. Not perfectly. But gradually, compassionately, one small choice at a time. When you truly understand the mechanism, when you see that little child who learned to want less to be loved more, something inside softens. You stop judging yourself for the pattern, because you see it for what it is, a survival strategy, not a character flaw. You start to feel compassion for the part of you that's been trying so hard to be good by being small. And from that place of understanding, change becomes possible. Not through force, not through discipline, not through another promise you'll break, through healing, through reparenting, through teaching that young part of you that things are different now, that you're allowed to want, that you're allowed to have, that you're allowed to receive, that investing in yourself isn't selfish. It's survival, it's health, it's the foundation of everything else you want to give. So what can you actually do? Not a magic solution, but a real beginning. First, notice without judgment. For 1 week, just observe. Every time you consider spending on yourself, pay attention to what happens inside. Don't try to change it, just watch. What thoughts come up? What feelings? What physical sensations? Awareness is the first crack in the pattern. Second, start impossibly small. Don't try to buy the big thing that feels impossible. Start with something so small it barely registers. A coffee exactly the way you like it. A small item that brings you genuine pleasure. And then sit with it. Notice the guilt. Let it be there without acting on it. You're not trying to make the guilt disappear. You're learning to tolerate it, to survive it, to prove to your nervous system that nothing bad happens when you receive. Third, ask yourself the real question. Before you deny yourself something, pause and ask, is this about money or is this about worth? If you have the money, if it's within your means, if it won't cause actual financial harm, and you're still saying no, it's not about money, it's about worth. And that's a different conversation, a deeper one. One that probably needs more than a budget to solve. Fourth, practice receiving. When someone offers you something, a compliment, a gift, help, practice saying thank you without deflecting, without minimizing, without immediately trying to give something back. Receiving is a skill. And like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. Let people invest in you. Let yourself matter enough to receive. And here's the truth that changes everything. You're not struggling with a spending problem. You're struggling with a worthiness problem that shows up around money. And no amount of financial literacy, no budget, no income increase will fix that. Because you can't solve an emotional wound with a rational strategy. You have to go to the root, to the child who learned to want less, to the beliefs about worth that were installed before you could evaluate them. And when you do, when you finally meet that part of yourself with compassion instead of frustration, when you understand instead of judge, the grip loosens, not all at once, but perceptibly. You buy something for yourself, and the guilt is still there, but smaller. You receive a gift and you don't immediately calculate how to give more back. You look at yourself in the mirror with that jacket, that dress, that thing you wanted, and something whispers, maybe I do deserve this. That whisper is the beginning. So if you've recognized yourself in this, if you've spent your life being the one who goes without, who doesn't need much, who always puts yourself last, I want you to know something. You're not selfless. You're self-abandoning. And there's a difference. Selflessness is choosing to give from overflow. Self-abandonment is refusing to fill your own cup and calling it virtue. One is love. The other is a wound dressed up as nobility. You've been surviving, and that survival strategy served you when you needed it. But you don't need it anymore. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to have nice things. You're allowed to spend money on yourself without justifying, apologizing, or feeling like you've done something wrong. Not because you earned it. Not because you deserve it by some measure of productivity or worth. Simply because you exist. Simply because you're here. Simply because you matter. That's enough. You've always been enough. It's okay that this feels strange. It's okay that the guilt doesn't disappear just because you understand where it comes from. Change is slow. Neural pathways built over decades don't reroute overnight, but they do reroute. Every time you choose yourself, even imperfectly, even while feeling guilty, you're building a new pathway. Every time you spend on yourself without apologizing, you're teaching your nervous system a new truth. Every time you receive without deflecting, you're healing a very old wound. It won't be linear. Some days will be easier than others. Some purchases will feel okay, others will bring up everything. That's normal. That's healing, and you don't have to do it alone. Therapy, support, people who understand these aren't weaknesses. They're tools, the same way you'd use tools for any other meaningful project. Your relationship with yourself is the most meaningful project you'll ever have, because ultimately, this isn't about buying things. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. The person who can't spend on themselves is the same person who struggles to rest without guilt, to accept help without shame, to believe they matter without proof. Healing this, learning to invest in yourself, changes everything. Not just your finances, your relationships, your energy, your sense of worthiness in the world. When you can finally give to yourself the way you give to others, something profound shifts. You stop running on empty. You stop resenting the giving because you're also receiving. You stop waiting for permission that was always yours to grant. And maybe for the first time, you start to live like someone who matters. Because you do. You always have. The money was never the problem. The worthiness was always there. It was just buried under years of messages that told you otherwise, and now you know. Now you see the pattern. What you do with that awareness is up to you. But know this. Every step you take toward investing in yourself is a step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. Not the one who goes without. Not the one who doesn't need much. Not the one who's fine with less, but the one who knows their worth. The one who receives as openly as they give. The one who finally, after all these years, treats themselves like someone worth investing in. Because you are, you always were, and it's time you started acting like it.